Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S66666 Gulliver's Trouble, Chapter 11, Glubbed Up Trip and Lock Neck. Although the Laputans were kind to me, I didn't want to spend a long time in their country, therefore I decided to travel from Barbie to the island of Lock Neck, from there to Japan and then home to England. But before I went to Lock Neck, an official I had met in Legato persuaded me to visit a small island of Glubbed Up Trip. You'll find it a very interesting place, he told me. Glubbed Up Trip means the island of magician. All the important people there are good at magic, you see. The president is the best magician of them all, but I must warn you, he has some very strange servants. They are all ghosts. By using magic, he can order the ghost of any dead person to be his servant for 24 hours, and the ghost must obey. It seemed unbelievable, but it was true. When we arrived on the island, we were invited to the president's palace. His servants certainly looked strange to me. There was a smell of death about them. When the president no longer needed them, he waved a hand, and they simply disappeared. I visited the president every day during my stay, and soon got used to seeing the ghost. One day, the president said, "Gulliver, would you like to call a ghost? It could be anyone from the beginning of the world up to the present day. You could ask them questions about their lives, and you can be sure they'll tell the truth. Ghosts always do." "That's very kind of you, sir," I replied, and thought hard for a moment. "First, I'd like to see Alexander the Great, please." The president pointed out of the window. There in a large field was the ghost of Alexander with his huge army. This famous king lived long ago in Macedonia, in northern Greece. His kingdom covered many countries, from Greece to Egypt, from Persia to parts of India, but he died very young, when he was only 33, and no one knew why. The president called him into the room. "Great king," I said to him, "just tell me one thing. Were you murdered, or did you die naturally?" "Young man, nobody murdered me. I drank too much and died of a fever." So in these few words, I had learned one of the secrets of history. I turned to the president, "And now may we see Julius Caesar and Brutus, the two Romans, to Alexander's place." The Brutus, of course, had killed Julius Caesar in Rome on 15th March 44 BC, one of the most famous murderers in history. "It is terrible to die by the hand of a friend, great Caesar," I said. "How do you feel about your murderer, Brutus?" "Do not call him that. He's a brave, good man, the best in Rome, and he did the right thing for Rome by killing me. In death as in life, he has always been my friend." I can't remember how many more ghosts I called to appear. I was very interested in these answers to my question, which often seemed to offer a different view of history from the one I had been taught at school. However, it was soon time to leave Glubbed Up Trip and sail to Long Neck, a much larger island to the southeast of Japan. The Long Neckians are polite and generous people, and I stayed here for 3 months. I made many friends among them. One day, one of them asked me, "Have you ever seen any of our strolled brooks?" "I don't think so," I replied. "What's that?" Strolled brook is a human being who will never die, but will live forever. If a long-neckian baby is born with a round spot above its left eye, which never disappears, it's a strolled brook. We have over 1,000 of them in the country." "How wonderful," I cried. "How exciting. How lucky you are in Long Neck, where a child has a chance of living forever. And how especially lucky the strolled brooks are. Disease, disaster, and death can never touch them. Imagine how much we can learn from them. I expect they are among the most important people in the country. They have lived through history and know so much which they are certain to pass on to the rest of us. If I had a chance, I'd like to spend my whole life listening to the intelligent conversation of these extraordinary people here in the Long Neck. But of course, answered my Lucknegian friend with a smile. We'll be delighted if you stay longer with us, but I'd like to know how you would plan your life if you were a scroll book. That's easy. First, I would work hard, earn a lot of money. In about 200 years, I'd be the richest man in Lakdak. I would study too, so that I knew more about everything than the cleverest professor. I'd also write down everything important that happened over the years, so that the students of history would come to me for help. I would teach young people what I had learned, but most of my time I would spend with other Skroldsbrooks, friends of mine. Together we could help to destroy crime in the world and begin to build a new and better life for everyone. I had only just finished describing the happiness of Vandel's life when I realized that my friend showed us were us checking and tears of laughter were running down his face. I really must explain, he said. You see, you have made a very understandable mistake. You suppose that if someone lives forever, he's young, healthy, and strong forever too. That doesn't happen. Our strawberries have a better, terrible life. After living for about 80 years, they become ill and miserable. They have no friends. They can't remember much of the past. At that age, the law considers them to be dead. So their children inherit the houses and money, and they sometimes have to beg to get enough food to eat. They lose their teeth and hair. They forget the names of their family. The only thing they want is to die, but that's impossible. I realized how stupid I had been and felt very sorry for the poor. Strolled the brooks. I finally left Lucknow on a boat sailing to Japan. From there, I found a ship which was returning to England. My voyage to Laputa, the Barley Barbie, the Gulliver and Lucknow had taken me away from home for 5.5 years. Chapter 12, a voyage to the country of the Hoyans. It was not long before I started my next voyage on 7th September 1710 as captain of my own ship this time. The owner of the ship wanted me to sail to the Indian Ocean to do some business for him there, but I was very unlucky. On the way, I had to employ some new sailors from Barbados, but they were men of very bad character. I heard them whispering to the other sailors several times, but I did not suspect what they were planning. One morning, as we were sailing round the Cape of Good Hope, they attacked me and tied me up. They told me they were going to take control of the ship and become pirates. There was nothing I could do. They left me alone on the beach of a small island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. As the ship sailed away, I realized I had no idea where I was found. I found the road where I was. I found the road away from the beach and walked very quietly and carefully along in case I was attacked. Several strange-looking animals were lying in a field, and some were sitting in a tree. Their heads and chests were covered in hair. They had beards as well. They walked sometimes on two and sometimes on four legs and could climb trees. They were certainly the ugliest animals I had ever seen in all my trouble. When I met one of these creatures on the road, his face showed great surprise and he lifted a foot high in the air. I did not know if he was going to attack me or not, but I hit him hard with the side of my sword. He screamed so loudly that all the other animals ran to help him. There were about 40 of them around me. I kept them away by waving my sword in the air, but their wild cries frightened me, and the horrible smell from the body made me feel sick. Suddenly they all ran away. I noticed that a horse was coming along the road, so I supposed the animals were afraid of him. The horse stopped when he saw me and seemed very surprised. He neighed several times in a very intelligent, gentle way, and I almost wondered if he was speaking in his own language. When another horse came along, the two horses walked up and down together while neighing to each other. They seemed like two important people discussing a difficult problem. I watched this with astonishment and decided that if the animals in this country seemed so sensible, the human beings must be the most intelligent in the world. The two horses then came close to me, looking at my face and clothes with great interest. They talked to each other again, And then the first horse made a clear sign for me to follow him. He led me to a long, low building. Inside, there were several large, airy rooms with no furniture. The horses were sitting or lying comfortably on the floor on clean blankets. But where was the master of the house? Were these horses his servants? I began to wonder if I was going mad. Then I realized that the house did not belong to a human, but to the horse who had brought me here. In this country, horses, not people, were in control. I started learning a little of the language. The word hoyam means a horse, and the word itself sounds a bit like a noise a horse makes. I find it very difficult to say this word, and so I decided to shorten it and call them hoyas. The servants were the horrible-looking animals I had seen earlier. They did all the hard work and lived in dirty little rooms in another building where they were tied to the walls. To my horror, these ugly animals called yahoos had human faces which looked very similar to mine. I didn't want anyone to think I was a yahoo, so I tried to make it clear that my habits were very different from theirs. At least I was allowed to sleep in a separate room from them. At first I thought I would die of hunger, as I could not eat the yahoo's dirty meat or the hoya's grass and corn, but I soon learned how to bake little cakes made of corn, which I ate with warm milk. Sometimes I cut a bird and cooked it. I picked leaves of plants to eat with my bread. My Hoi master was very interested in me. As soon as I could speak the language, he asked me to explain where I had come from. Well, master, I neighed, I come from a country on the other side of the world, and you may not believe this, but in my country, all the important people look like yahoos. But how is that possible? He asked gently. Your Hois surely wouldn't allow unintelligent creatures like yahoos to control the country. It may seem strange, but you see, I was surprised to find that in this country, the Hoyas are the sensitive and intelligent creature. If I'm lucky enough to return home, I will tell my friends all about it, but I'm afraid they may accuse me of lying. My master looked quite worried. What is lying? He asked. In their language, there is no word which means telling lies, and my master had great difficulty in understanding me. I tried to explain. Oh, he answered, still unsure. But why does anyone tell a lie? There is no reason for doing it. We use language in this country in order to understand each other and to give and receive information. If you don't tell the truth, how can people understand each other? I began to see how different Hoya life was from what I was used to. But tell me about your country. I was delighted to describe recent English history to him, especially some of our most successful wars. But why does one country attack another? There are many reasons, I replied. A king or his lords may want more land. There may be a difference of opinion between two countries, for example, or whether uniform should be black, white, red, or gray. Sometimes we fight because the enemy is too strong, sometimes because he isn't strong enough. Sometimes our neighbors want the things we have or have the things we want. So we both fight until they take ours or give us theirs. We often attack our best friend. If we want some of his land, there is always a war somewhere. For the system, being a soldier is one of the best jobs you can have. A soldier? I'm not quite sure what that is. Soldier is a yahoo who works for his king and country. His orders are to kill as many people as he can. I answered. The people who have never heard him? I asked the Hoi. That's right, I said, pleased that he seemed to understand at last. Soldiers have killed thousands of people in recent history. He shook his head and looked sad. I think you must be, what was your words? Lying to me. How could you and your countrymen kill so many other yahoos? And why would you want to? I smiled as I replied proudly. So, you don't know much about European war. Without guns and bullets and gunpowder, we can destroy 1,000 ships, 100 cities, and 20,000 men, you see. Be quiet, hero. I have heard enough. I know yahoos are bad, but I didn't realize they could possibly do such a terrible things. After these conversations, I began to wonder whether the Hois were right. Why do we humans so often fight wars and tell lies? Peace and truce began to seem more important than making war or making money. I became more and more used to the Hoyas' ideas and way of life. As the Hoyas did, I hated the Yahoos for their dirty habits and unpleasant character. By the time I had been there a year, I walked and neighed like the Hoes. I felt such a strong love for them that I planned to spend the rest of my life among them and to try to become more like them. It's a great sadness to me, even today, that this was not possible. One day my Hoey master said, "Can you explain something to me? Why are the Yahoos so violently fond of those shining stones in the field? They dig for days to get them out of the ground and hide them jealously from other Yahoos. I expect they have found pieces of gold or silver," I said. Because he did not seem to understand, I added, "We use them as money to pay for things, you see? How strange. We share everything here. No Hoey needs. What do you call it, money?" Perhaps you can imagine how I felt. I knew I could be happy forever with this sensible, gentle creature who never lied, stole in a country which had no disease, no crime, no war, but this perfect happiness did not last long. "I'm sorry," said my friends, "and I have decided you can't stay here any longer. You see, you are neither one of us, nor a Yahoo." "No, don't send me away. How can I go back to England to live with those awful Yahoos?" "I'm afraid you must. My servants will help you make a boat." And so 2 months later, although I was very sad to leave, I said goodbye to my dear master and his family and rode away from the land of the Hoys. I knew that I would never find happiness anywhere else. After several days traveling eastwards, I arrived in Australia and from there managed to find a ship returning to Europe. I did not enjoy the voyage. The sailors all laughed at me because I walked and neighed like a horse. They looked just like those horrible Yahoos, and at first I could not let them touch me or come near me. The ugly faces and unpleasant smell made me feel quite ill. And when I arrived home in England, after being away for 5 years, my wife and children were delighted to see me because they had thought I was dead. But to my horror, they looked and smelled like Yahoos too, and I told them to keep away from me. Even now, 5 years later, I do not let my children get close to me, although I sometimes allow my wife to sit with me while I eat. I try to accept my countrymen now, but the proud ones are so full of their own self-importance. Well, they had better not come near me. How sad the people cannot learn from the Hoys. I was hoping that perhaps human beings would change their ways after reading the stories of my life with the Hoys. But they accuse me of lying in my book. Now I realize that people still lie, steal, and fight, just as they have always done, and probably will always do. I will say no more, clearly. There is no hope for human beings. I was stupid to think that I could bring reason and truth into their lives and thoughts. Humans are all Yahoos, and Yahoos they will remain. The end.